Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie because he answers my questions. Good morning, Governor. Welcome back from Israel. Glad to have you back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hugh, thanks so much for having me on.
Let's begin with the important stuff. What did you see in Israel? What message do you want to give the American people about what Israel is facing?
Hugh, the extraordinary thing that I saw was not just the inhumanity that's been visited on the people of Israel, but it was the joy that these terrorists took in visiting this inhumanity on the people of Israel. I saw a video that was a 40-minute video put together by the government of Israel from raw footage, from dash cams, body cams of the terrorists who were later killed, and they confiscated those cams, and also from the cell phones of some of the victims. And the things I saw were extraordinary. Terrorists burning people alive. Terrorists coming into a home, chasing a father and his 8- and 6-year-old sons into a bomb shelter, throwing a hand grenade in there, and watching the father jump on the hand grenade to save his 2 sons and he was killed. And the 2 sons running out of the bomb shelter full of their father's blood. And the terrorists chased them into the house. And the 2 little boys were sitting there screaming and crying about their father being dead. And the terrorists stared at them and then opened the refrigerator, took Cokes out of the refrigerator, and drank them. It's a level of inhumanity. Lastly, there's a million stories I could tell you, but lastly, they intercepted a cell phone call from a Hamas terrorist back to his parents in Gaza. And he said, "Mom, I just killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. Your son is a hero." And the parents were cheering on the other end of the phone.
Governor, if you are the president, will you cut off funding to American universities that refuse to expel the anti-Semites who are assaulting Jews and other people across campuses in the United States?
Not only that, Hugh, but I would personally meet with the boards of trustees of these universities and tell them that they need to fire their presidents, because this is a lack of leadership. And when you see what's going on, especially right now up at Harvard, it is a disgrace to have people calling for intifada. That's not free speech, Hugh. We know that's calling for murder. That's calling for murder of the Jews as a religion, as a race. It is extraordinary. And I think that for too long, and the root of this problem, Hugh, is that these presidents and these boards of trustees have been hiring these anti-Semitic professors and granting them tenure. And we send our 18-year-old sons and daughters to these places to be educated. And what we find out now is they're being educated by a ton of anti-Semites who are teaching impressionable kids that somehow there's some moral equivalence. There is no moral equivalence between what happens in Israel and Hamas. It is the difference between good and evil, and we need to be teaching those things. They need to learn them, Hugh. Don't get me wrong, but they need to have them characterized in the right way, because I bet you that 2/3 of these students on these campuses who are walking around and chanting for intifada don't have a damn idea what they're talking about.
I agree with that. Now, Governor, I enjoyed last week's debate greatly. I thought the Republican Jewish Committee Coalition's inclusion was a stroke of genius by Ronna McDaniel and David Bossie. The next debate is going to be in Alabama. Will you qualify for it?
I have qualified, Hugh. The great news is just 2 days ago, we passed the 80,000 mark. We had already qualified under the polling. And we were working hard. They're setting high standards here in getting there. We had to work very hard to make sure. But I want to give you some perspective, because you were also involved watching me run 8 years ago. At this time, 8 years ago, we had 8,600 donors.
Huh.
Today, we have over 81,000 donors.
Well, I believe that I have forwarded you a text from one of my old Democratic partners in a law firm saying he would vote for you for president. And I said that's the first Republican to ever vote for, but they don't get to vote in primaries. Is it working with primary voters?
Look, it is. And I think what you're seeing is, Hugh, this thing started at 13 candidates, right? And as as of right now, it's really down to 5 candidates who have any chance to win this thing, and I'm one of those 5. And when I started, people said, "Oh, there's no chance, there's no appetite in the Republican Party for the truth about Donald Trump, for the truth about what our country needs to do." And I think we've proven that that's absolutely wrong. There is an appetite for it. Now, as we get to these next 60 days, there has to be distinctions made between myself and the others on the stage. And I think we started to do that at the third debate because there were substantive questions being asked. And frankly, one of the things that I was most disturbed by, and I said this during the debate, was that no one would answer the questions. They all have these pre-programmed answers that they've memorized, or these pithy lines that they've memorized, and they all look relieved when they actually get the lines that they've memorized out. Instead of listening to the question, when you were asking about the Navy, it was extraordinary to me that no one would give a substantive answer, and who have given any thought about this, and now they want to be president of the United States. It's stunning to me because let me tell you, if you're sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office, memorized answers don't work.
I have a column in the Washington Post today about why this debate was better than other debates. And I was sympathizing with Brett Baer last night. 8 candidates a lot harder to manage than 5, and NBC worked very hard with the RJC and me to make sure that it was well done. But the 90-second answer is crucial, as well as getting rid of the stupid right of reply. Do you agree with those fundamental rule set changes, Governor?
I do, but it only works, Hugh, really well if you answer the questions.
Right. You did answer my question on ship counts. Some of them may not have known. Some of them may have wanted to make other points. And I do not think we're going to have more than 4. I don't think Mr. Ramaswamy is going to make the cutoff on polling, but I hope the former president comes. At some point, I think he loses support if he doesn't come. What do you think?
I do, too, and I think it's going to be coming as people really start to focus. And let's face it, Hugh. You and I have been focusing on this every day for a long time. This is your business and my business. But for the American people, there's a lot going on. I think that the tragedy in Israel and what's going on in this country at the border and inflation is now getting people to really focus on the fact that, wow, we have an election. And I think Donald Trump's numbers are artificially inflated. I think as for any incumbent, but let's face it, what if Joe Biden were in the 40s in the Democratic primary? There would be a media tumult about how he was dead in the 40s. How could any incumbent be in the 40s? Yet Donald Trump in the 40s is a runaway winner. I just don't believe that. And I think that it's going to start to come to a head over the course of the next 60 days, along with the fact, Hugh, that what all your listeners need to understand, whether they support Donald Trump or not, is that on March 4th, a trial is going to start in Washington, D.C., where Mark Meadows is going to be the lead witness for the prosecution. Not some rogue Democratic prosecutor, not some product of the two-tiered system of justice that so many people complain about, but the guy who was one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus, the guy who Donald Trump called James Baker as his chief of staff, is going to sit in the courtroom 20 feet from Donald Trump and say he committed crimes before his eyes, that he lied to the American people knowingly starting on election night and did everything he could to obstruct a valid American election. How in the hell are we going to nominate someone like that and expect to win back the presidency? We won't.